And thank you everyone for being here. Welcome to another beautiful Sunday with CLC. We're happy that you're joining us. But with that, I invite you all to say with me, divine love through me blesses and multiplies all the good I am and have, all the good I give and receive. I am prosperous now, and so it is. Hello again, everyone. I invite you now to relax in this peaceful moment. Take a few deep breaths. Relax your body. Relax your mind. Put the day and week that you've had aside and all concerns for the upcoming week. Just let that go, just for now. And allow yourself to be here now. Universal love enfolds me. Universal wisdom inspires me. Universal spirit enlightens me. Universal power encircles me. I am one and all is well. As we begin the inner healing process, let me invite you to relax in quiet confidence, opening yourself to the miracle-working higher power. Now symbolize your unity of your thinking and feeling nature by touching your chest with your right hand, and let my words act as your own for your own inner healing, acceptance, and receptivity. I acknowledge that there is a power, intelligence, and wisdom greater than my own. I am in the midst of it, and it is in the midst of me, sensitive and responsive to my every thought, word, action, and feeling. I now make this true for myself by saying aloud, I acknowledge. Acknowledging the higher power working through my life, I admit that I am personally responsible for solving my own problems, while being guided and assisted by something greater than myself. As I am ready to surrender the conflicts of my ego to the wisdom of the infinite presence, I simply speak these words: I surrender. Knowing that forgiveness is the key to unconditional love and the feeling of heaven, I now unconditionally forgive anyone and everyone who has ever injured me in any way, real or imagined. And I now forgive myself for all my mistaken judgments and their resulting actions. From my deepest level of understanding, I now say, I forgive. Realizing that I continually experience the effects of my own thinking, I now choose to allow this higher power to recreate me deeply, filling my mind with thoughts that are only constructive, positive, loving, and beautiful. I call upon this divine inflow by stating aloud, I choose. I now center upon that one special idea that I'm willing to accept as real for me in this coming week. Visualizing the idea as already acted upon and brought to pass. In seeing my idea become a fact of my experience, I enjoy the happiness and peace of my thought fulfilled and gratefully speak these words: I accept. Knowing that I have an everlasting place in the midst of the power that sustains all creation, as well as the support of all those around me, I allow myself to relax in the peace of fulfillment and gratitude and say, I release. Now, in my mind's eye, I envision the presence of someone near and dear to me. This can be a friend, a family member, a teacher or mentor, someone who has touched my life in deep and loving ways. Someone who may not be physically present in the room with me this morning. I turn toward that image in my mind's eye and say, I am grateful for the good in your life. I now open my eyes to the world around me, turn joyfully to anyone present next to me, whether virtually or in the room physically, and I share my gratitude and confidence with them by saying, I am grateful for the good in all of your lives.
I'm going to do a song first. Has it not? I expected the week to look like this. I expected it to start with an outstanding workshop on Monday night, which it did. And then pretty much business as usual until the mobile food event yesterday. But in the middle of it, we had a hurricane panic. And when the hurricane passed us by, the next day the power went out, and as soon as the power came back on, about 10 hours later, I think, the internet went out. So I'm a little frazzled today. Everything's working right now, and everybody is, right? But you know, just to double down on what Danielle said about yesterday, we had 36 people working. 36, that's the largest turnout we've had. And we do these sometimes in nice weather. We do these sometimes when it's cool and breezy and the wind is out of the north. Yesterday was not one of those days. It was like a greenhouse out there. So I've got to, again, just offer profuse thanks to everybody who came out and worked. They came from every corner of the city. Some people drove long distances to be with us, drove over an hour and a half to come out and help us feed these 200 families, and we'll be doing this again the Saturday before Thanksgiving. We do this quarterly, and you'll have plenty of advance notice about that, as you will about everything that goes on here at the center, because that's what we do. We try to keep you informed on things. Today I close out a series. Put the microphone, the series is called Put the Microphone Down a Little Bit. How about now? You see our crisp, well-rehearsed service. But I have to, again, thank Jeffrey, Danielle, Reverend Lisa for all these weeks being here. I said laughingly to Danielle yesterday at the food event, I said, well, you know, I have to work tomorrow. And she looked me right in the eye and said, well, so do I. And she's absolutely right. Here she is, because here we are. This is ending a series on our extra senses. We have extra senses beyond the 5 that we were trained we had. And many of these are metaphysical. Many of these are, well, they're all spiritual, but many of these are working in the unseen realm. And we've been talking about them through these 5 weeks. And today we come to the last of these, which is the sense of the passage of time. We have something, you know, your inner alarm clock. I think I mentioned that last week. You have a sense of kind of when things are to occur, and it goes off within you. Well, you can use that in a powerful, creative way. The sense of the passage of time. Were you raised in a religion, or have you heard it said, the question asked of people, where will you spend eternity? I've even seen billboards that ask that question. Where will you spend eternity? And I know what they're referring to. They're talking about a binary choice between the good place and the other place. And they're talking about a certain theology in which all of that is couched. I want to ask the same question of all of us today. Where will we spend eternity? Because where eternity is right here. This is eternity. This is eternity right this moment. Where are we spending it? How are we spending it? How are we devoting and dedicating our attention in this present moment? See, in religious science, we talk about the now. There have been many wonderful books written and talks given on the power of this moment, the now. In the now, everything happens. I'm having this experience in the now. You're having it in the now. If you're watching this talk on Sunday evening on YouTube, you're watching it in a now. We're having it in a now, but you're watching it in a now. You're watching a previous now, but it's not a previous now to you. It's a current now, right? Because that's when you're watching it, you see? All time is happening now. The past is happening now. Even the future is happening now. In imagination. And I found an image for this yesterday that just rocked me. It's out of a new book called Vesper Flight by Helen MacDonald, which I have not read because it's just been published, but I read a review of the book, and it quoted some of the passages in there, and one of them just really caught my attention. So I want to take her image and dwell on it with the understanding that I don't know that this is what she says in her book. This is just her image I'm borrowing, and I'm taking liberties with it here, but it's a really cool image. So I want to take you on a little trip in your imagination this morning, if you'd like to go. Take 5 minutes, and it might be really instructive, and it might be really healing for you. So I invite you to put down your oatmeal, except it's too hot for oatmeal. So what's a nice cool breakfast food? Melon. Put down your melon. Put down your cantaloupe. All right? Put down the OJ and just picture a field. A field. You know, we talk about the field, like the quantum field, fields of energy. Some of that's a little obscure. So picture this field that you know, which is a big green field, a big green grassy field, and there's a road running by this field, and you're on that road. In fact, imagine that you're in the passenger seat of a vehicle, someone else is driving, and so you're looking out the passenger window to your right to this field, driving by at a moderate speed. And it's a very large field. It's a very large field. It's the size of maybe a couple of football fields put together. It's how it looks to you. The ground is flat. The grass is green and even. And at the back of the field, on the far side of the field, is a stand of trees, which you know opens out into the forest behind the field. Now, as you look at this field, maybe an animal comes out of the woods briefly. Maybe some birds land on the field and take back off. And what you realize is this field has been there on this earth as long as earth has had fields. However long that may have been, in all the movement of continents and the reshaping of things, however long there's been a field, this field has stood. All around it, cities and towns have built up, but not on this field. It's been untouched. How many generations of birds have landed on this field to peck around for something to eat? And they hatched new birds. And those birds hatched new birds. And how many generations? And if the birds of antiquity were to come back to this field today, in form again, how would they feel about this ground? Would they remember it? Would they be as grateful for it as when it gave them food? And think about the future generations of birds, yet unhatched, yet to come, who will visit this field. And think about the animals who wander on the field, not so much in broad daylight, but after dark. Deer, coyote, animals of your choosing, wherever on earth, in whatever climate you place this field, come out of those woods, appear as if out of nowhere, because they're good at hiding. And they come out to this field. And they look for one another. And they look for food. And they cross the field. And some of them spend more time on the field than others, and for some they're just passing through, like you are in the car in which you ride as you drive past this field. Then think about the others like yourself who drive up and down this highway, and have ever since there's been a highway, and ever since there have been cars, and before there were cars, when there were wagons, and before that, when people simply walked on foot from place to place. Imagine all the generations of humankind passing by this field, and all the different ideas that were had about it. Some would look at it and say, let's play ball on this field. Others would look at it and say, let's build a house on this field. I wonder if this field is for sale. Some would wonder if there's oil beneath the ground. And some would simply appreciate it for a beautiful green pasture that it is, and no one was wrong. No one was wrong in what they thought or what they expected or hoped for. This is how history works. This is past, this is present, this is future. When you see that field, you're seeing all the generations of life, of any kind, that have walked on it, flown over it, tracked across it, imagined it from across the street. When you see that field, you're bringing all of you to it, your intentions, your delights in life to this experience of the field. And you're seeing the future, what it could be, and how later beings, generations of life, will interpret this, or could. And you can imagine. And you can carry that field with you wherever you go, just as you're doing right now. Because the field that I'm describing to you exists only right now in your imagination. Now take a moment and realize that when I said field, big grassy field, and so forth, for you to be able to imagine it, you must have had an experience of such a thing. You have seen fields in different places at different times. And all of them that you've seen and walked through barefoot have come together to form the current field that you're imagining now. This is destiny. This is eternity. Eternity in a grain of sand. Eternity in an hour. All stretched before us. Did you have a nice drive by the field? I don't know that I'll see a field the same after just reading that brief passage from the new book and then taking it where I took it. To see the sort of shadowy, ghostly outlines of prior generations of beings moving across the landscape like they do. And then today, fleshed out in form, clearly distinct, and then clouds of energy that form the future of what can be. But what I know is this is where we work. When you hear about the inner field or the field of imagination, this is where we work. And if you were able to follow along with what I was doing, whether you did that visually or kinetically or auditorily. You heard chirping birds and so forth and crickets and the sounds of a field, you know. If you were able to follow along at all, if you were able to engage with that at all, you had touched the place within yourself where the deep work is done. It's in that field spot within the self that we do the convincing of the self that's required. You remember the first week, I think it was, of this series, I was talking about the universal subjective, and I used Lisa and Danielle as examples here. And I said, if Danielle chooses to feel a certain way about herself, then the universe feels that way about her. And if she asks Lisa to feel a certain way about her, then Lisa has that knowing as well with Danielle's permission. And the universe's mind is made up. That's the only thing that we have to convince. Is that subjective place within ourselves. And then the structure that we call cosmic energy or universal intelligence and law, then that begins to move as well. So this is where the work is done. And this is the inner sense that we have. So when you hear it said, and it sounds a little too easy sometimes, or a lot too easy, where you hear it said to picture the world as you would have it be, to fall in love with the vision of possibilities, to go where nothing has ever been wrong. This is what is meant, is go to the field. And a couple of people watching today are probably waiting for this. From Rumi, out beyond ideas of right doing and wrong doing, there is a field. I will meet you there. This is the field, you see? So you decide what to place on that field. You decide how you wish to see things be. And something begins to shift. And the next person along is going to picture it their way. And you don't have to convince them to do otherwise. In spiritual work, in political work, in economic work, in social and commercial work, yes. Persuasion is a big part of what we do. Sales is a big part of what we do in life, isn't it? We sell ourselves and our confidence and so on. This is true. In spiritual work, not so much. In spiritual work, all I have to convince is me, because then what begins to happen is my experience begins to change. And I become a place of changed experience. Which is what Monday night's workshop was about. Is what will I do with my stuff, my unhealed stuff? Will I look at it? Will I educate myself? It was not about fixing or changing anyone else. It was about going within the self and discovering what's there. Then we come out of that and we decide the work that lies before us to do. See, I think it's hypocritical every time. So, well, you only have to change yourself and stuff. And I'm a guy who's talking on Facebook to I don't know how many people. If all I had to fix was myself, or if all I had to change was myself, if the only person I could teach was myself, why am I getting up Sunday mornings to do this, you know? So there is a persuasive tactic coming in. All I want out of you is try this, and watch what happens. In trying times, try this. How's that for catchy? In trying times, try this. Try picturing the field. And you might say, the field, I got nothing out of it. Use a beach. Same thing is true. Waves come in, waves go out. You know, the tides twice in 24 hours. The people playing there, the generations of people, the birds. It's the same thing. Nature is good. Nature works for this. But if you have to, use an office building, for crying out loud. You know, people going to work up and down in the elevators, da-da-da-da-da, generation after generation of people. And all that time blending together into one whole sphere called eternity. Ernest Holmes wrote about this in Immortality, little booklet. He said, we are immortal now. We often think of immortality as beginning at the moment of death. Your body comes off, your soul is freed, and now you're immortal. and you get to go on and have some kind of new experience, and that's based on whatever sort of theology you believe in, presumably. But this is where immortal right now. You've always been. You'll always be. You're also not local, which we'll get more into next month, where we're going to be talking about spiritual strategies. You're not just a localized presence, but that's where the focus is. That's where the access point seems to be, of conscious into subconscious. We affect things more greatly than we know. And some of you after last week contacted me about why doesn't the center reopen for services, because we are spiritual practitioners and we don't believe in catching the COVID virus. And people of my generation call it the COVID. I don't know why, like the measles. But anyhow, you get it, the picture. And some great conversations were had this week about that. And I realized there was something I left out. So as you hear it in the news a lot, I want to clarify my comments. I want to clarify my comments from last week. Why we're not open yet as a group is this. I don't think I'm going to catch the COVID. I have not thought since the beginning of this I was going to catch the COVID. Why not? Because I do a lot of prayer work. I do a lot of meditation. I say that, no, over the years I've caught colds and other things, so why not? But I thought, no, I got work to do. I don't think I'm gonna. And I encourage you to feel like you're not gonna. But we encounter a lot of people. And you can carry something with you. When I used the image last week, I said, what if, I invited you to dinner and some of the food was tainted? Well, that's not an accurate metaphor. More accurate metaphor is, what if I invited you to dinner and a bunch of people you didn't even know you were meeting fell sick as a result? That's the thing. We can carry this thing on our sleeve. We can carry this thing in our face out into the world to people we don't even know are there. And it's still spreading. It's declined in numbers, but it's still spreading. So to get a bunch of us together, and face it, we are creative life people. You get us together, we're going to want to hug. We're going to want to get neat. We're going to want to sing. We're going to want to do all the stuff we've normally done. And then we go out of here, maybe carrying something that's toxic to others. Not yet. Not yet. This is where we meet the world. Personal consciousness meets the world. COVID might not be our problem, might not be my problem, or your problem today, but it is our responsibility. I talked to somebody yesterday who works in a business, a 20-person office, 11 of them had the coronavirus. I don't know the states of recovery of all 11. And all I could think was, beyond empathy for those 11 and their families, was who all they shake hands with before they knew it. So a certain responsibility comes with the recognition of inner spiritual power, including when the world tells you you're going to extremes. We get told sometimes in this teaching, you people are too positive, you people are too blithe, Haven't you heard the news of how awful things are? How can you still believe in a loving God? How can you still believe in a spiritual system that works, that is workable? And it's not a wildly popular idea right now, but it is our idea, and it's your idea, and it's attractive to you, and that's why you're watching here. That's why you're drawn to this in some way. It's the idea that there is personal agency as well. Well, with that comes responsibility, great responsibility. When you know that you are a co-creator with the infinite, then the switch is in your hands, And these aren't game controllers anymore. You know, this isn't just something that means nothing that's there on a screen that you get points for. You're co-managing the world. This is what we're doing. This is what we signed up for. Now, if we get tired of thinking we signed up for it, we can think something else. We can go back to believing that the whole thing is foreordained and it's just heading where it's heading, and all we have to do is keep our head down and do our work and try to get out of here alive. But I don't think that's enough for you. It's not enough for me. That's why we're drawn to this teaching. Well, if you can imagine the field, then know that this is where the work is done. This is the field of consciousness. This is where we meet the world. And your destiny began in eternity. Not just when you hit town. Not just when you were born. Your destiny began in deep eternity, but it's refreshed daily. Every day you get up with a head full of thoughts and a heart full of feelings, and you decide where you're going to go with these. And what you're going to amplify, and what you're going to diminish, what you're going to seek, what you're going to release, and so on. This is how we create our spiritual destiny. To be happy, to be at peace, to be effective, to be creative, to be approved of, to be validated. Each of us has our own guiding motives in how we work this. And every time you decide or I decide how we would have it be in our lives, a new possibility is born in the mind of the one. And if there was not a field there before, if there was not a road through that field that's now paved, that began as a dirt road, that began as a footpath, if there's not a passage through that field, there will be. There will be. Because mind is all. Consciousness is all. Consciousness creates, sustains, and refreshes. Let's know together now there is one life, one power, one presence, pure spirit, everywhere radiant, everywhere blossoming and blooming, and now in this green space of North Houston, Texas, where rains came through and refreshed everything, and drooping shrubs and plants and leaves on trees have now perked back up. In this deepest and last part of our long summer, it is easy to feel the presence of this one life that created and sustained all things. I affirm and know for each one of us a deep and abiding sense of belonging in the creative unfoldment of all that is. I affirm for each of us ready access to this field of dreams in consciousness. I affirm and know a regular spiritual practice as an antidote to fear and suspicion and upset. I affirm and know now for the people of Lake Charles and all of South and Central Louisiana and any points north affected by the experience we have called Hurricane Laura, that out of nowhere comes a cool breeze. Up from under comes suitable drinking water. Out of the ethers, there comes every possible form of support. And in every heart, there is an expansion of hope. I affirm and know for wherever people struggle for rights, there is the power of God right there. The one life that gave us those rights, that gave us life, that created us in its own image. I affirm and know there is love. Boundless love, binding us all together. And for this knowing, and for the way that it finds its way into the lives of each one of us, and by us I mean everybody, and everybody they know, I am so deeply grateful. I release this word now into the infinite, calling it done, and so it is.
I moved the camera a little bit, and that's made it a bit of a challenge to figure out how to get around it today. So I aggravated my knee last Saturday running on a gravel track. And so I was like, okay, what am I going to do about this? Have y'all heard of RICE? And I don't mean the thing that you eat. It stands for rest, ice, compression, and elevate. Well, now I'm working on a talk, Jesse, because we all deserve a rest. No, we don't deserve a rest. We deserve to rest. Let me put it to you this way. And I'm thinking about ice in what have we got on ice that we could be doing, and what are we doing that we should be putting on ice? But I'm going to change compression to compassion. And I'm going to quote you the Dalai Lama: if your compassion does not include yourself, it's not enough. And then elevate, which is what we do here. We elevate our thoughts. We elevate our actions. We elevate our spirit. So it's coming. So I'm going to leave you with that little rice. But right now, what I am going to know is that there is one life, one love, one presence, one power. And I know that that power flows through me. That love flows through me. That love is me, just as I know that each and every one of you are that love. You are the hands and feet and heart and eyes and ears of that love. And so, as we know, here in Houston, when Harvey came ashore here, Louisiana scrambled and brought us all that they could. So too do we know that Houston is currently responding to Louisiana. I'm knowing that that love is flowing between us, as us, through us. And we haven't forgotten that the heat, drink plenty of water. We are knowing that resources and firefighters, the true Golden State Warriors for California and Colorado. We are knowing that the rain is going where it needs to there, and that the people know the security and the compassion of their neighbors. And we know this, and we're grateful. We're grateful for you. We're grateful for each other. We're grateful for this place. And we'll be grateful when it is time to be together again. But we are grateful that we have this way to come to you now. So I know this love. I commend this love to you. And I relax, release, and know that it is so. And so it is.
Say with me now, something wonderful is happening through me. I feel it in my body. I feel it in my mind. I feel it in everything I am. I choose it. I trust it. I use it. And I love it. And so it is.
Thank you.